Hey everyone, and welcome to our deep dive, this time into the Silk Road. It's this legendary network of routes that, crisscross continents for centuries. And I think when we think of the Silk Road, we often think of, luxurious fabrics going from east to west, right?
Right.
But
It's so much more than that.
yeah, it's so much more.
Yeah, we're not just talking about silk here. I think spices, medicines, fruits, flowers, even horses.
Wow.
And beyond these, fascinating goods, the Silk Road was a highway for something even more valuable.
Oh, really?
Yeah, the exchange of ideas, religions, and cultures.
Okay.
That's what we're going to be diving into today.
I love that. So imagine a world without the internet.
Right.
Or even trains.
Yeah.
People traveled for weeks, sometimes months,
Oh.
on foot, camelback, or by ship.
Yeah.
These journeys were tough. Scorching deserts,
Right.
towering mountains, and of course the ever-present threat of bandits,
Oh, yeah.
right?
Yeah. And yet, people persisted.
They did.
That desire to connect with other cultures,
But-
to trade goods and knowledge was just that powerful.
Yeah.
And remember, this wasn't one single road, but a web of routes that shifted over time.
Well, so it wasn't really like a road.
No, it's more like,
Okay.
think of it like a living, breathing network that adapted to political changes, geographical challenges, and even the climate.
Really?
Yeah, and get this network was active for over 2,000 years.
2,000 years.
Yeah.
That's mind-boggling.
It is.
With that perspective, that's longer than many empires have existed.
Right.
And over those centuries, so much happened. Like, for instance, did you know that Buddhism, the religion we often associate with East Asia, actually originated in India?
Yes, and its spread eastward was largely due to the Silk Road. Monks traveled vast distances, carrying their teachings to new lands, influencing everything from art and architecture to philosophy and daily life.
It's amazing to me how these interactions shaped entire societies. Speaking of which, can we talk about those bustling Silk Road cities?
Yeah.
I'm picturing like vibrant marketplaces.
Oh, yeah.
Traders from different corners of the world.
Yeah.
All bartering in a mix of languages.
You're spot on. Cities like Samarkand in modern-day Uzbekistan, Xi'an in China, and Istanbul in Turkey became melting pots of cultures. Think mosques next to Buddhist temples. Caravanserais hosting merchants from different lands, all exchanging not just goods, but stories, ideas, even recipes.
Wow.
And the fascinating thing is you can still see the legacy of this cultural fusion in these cities today.
It's like stepping back in time, isn't it?
It really is.
You mentioned Xi'an.
Yes.
That reminds me of something incredible.
Yeah.
Did you know that farmers accidentally discovered the terracotta army there?
Yes, the Terracotta Army. It's a vast collection of thousands of life-size clay soldiers buried to protect the tomb of the first emperor of China. This discovery gave us an incredible glimpse into the power and grandeur of the empires that rose and fell along the Silk Road. And it highlights just how much history is still hidden beneath the surface, waiting to be uncovered.
Yeah, I always think of it like there's so much more to learn.
Right.
And speaking of uncovering, fascinating layers.
Yes.
We can't forget about the role of religion.
Right?
The Silk Road was a major pathway for the spread of different faiths, wasn't it?
Absolutely. We've already touched on Buddhism, but Christianity, Islam, and other religions also traveled these routes, leaving a profound impact on the regions they reached. And it's crucial to remember that not all of these interactions were peaceful. Sometimes the arrival of new beliefs led to conflicts and power struggles.
That's a good point. It's easy to romanticize the Silk Road,
Right.
but it's important to acknowledge that it wasn't always a harmonious exchange of ideas. There were complexities, challenges, and sometimes even exploitation woven into its history.
You're absolutely right. And to understand those complexities, we need to consider the perspectives of all the players involved. For example, the nomadic empires who lived in and controlled vast stretches of Central Asia played a crucial role in the Silk Road's success.
Now, when you say nomadic empires,
Yes.
what exactly does that mean? I'm picturing people constantly on the move.
Right.
How did they fit into this whole network?
That's a great question. These empires weren't like the settled empires of China or Rome.
Okay.
Their people lived in portable dwellings, like yurts, constantly moving with their herds of animals
Wow.
in search of grazing land. They were incredibly skilled horsemen and archers, and they often controlled key sections of the Silk Road.
So they weren't just passing through, they were a vital part of the Silk Road's infrastructure.
Precisely. They provided essential services.
Okay.
Think protection from bandits, guiding caravans through difficult terrain, even acting as intermediaries in trade. This created a fascinating relationship of interdependence. The nomadic empires relied on trade for goods they couldn't produce themselves, and the settled empires relied on the nomads to keep trade flowing smoothly.
It's like a giant, intricate puzzle.
It is.
With each piece, essential to the overall picture. And to get a real sense of the Silk Road's diverse landscape, I came across a quote from Marco Polo, the famous explorer who traveled extensively along these routes. He wrote about encountering a region where the Christians are the masters of the land, but there are always idolaters and worshippers of Muhammad. This is likewise a people called Argon, meaning in French Guasmoul, that is mixed of two different races.
Wow.
It just goes to show how religions and cultures were intermingling and influencing one another.
That quote perfectly captures the complexity of the Silk Road. It wasn't just about the movement of goods, it was about the movement of people, beliefs, and ways of life.
Yeah.
This brings us to a fascinating realization.
Okay.
The Silk Road can be seen as an early form of globalization.
Wait, globalization, isn't that a modern concept?
The term might be modern, but the idea of interconnectedness of cultures influencing each other through trade and exchange, that goes way back. The Silk Road shows us that the world has always been more connected than we sometimes realize.
Wow, that's a lot to take in. We've already covered so much ground.
I know, it's a lot.
From bustling Silk Road cities to the spread of religions and even the role of nomadic empires.
And we've only just scratched the surface. Next time we'll delve even deeper, exploring the fascinating world of knowledge and technology that flowed along these ancient routes. Get ready for some truly aha moments as we uncover the Silk Road's impact on innovation and ideas that shaped our world. Welcome back to our deep dive into the Silk Road. Last time we talked about the fascinating cultural and religious exchanges that happened along these ancient routes. Now let's shift our focus to something equally remarkable, the spread of knowledge and technology.
You know, it's easy to get caught up in the romance of exotic goods and bustling marketplaces, but the Silk Road's impact on knowledge and innovation is truly mind-blowing.
It really is.
It's like, imagine a world without paper.
Right.
How would we record our thoughts, share stories, or spread knowledge?
That's a great point. We often take paper for granted, but its invention in China and subsequent journey westward along the Silk Road was a game changer. Think about it. Before paper, people in Europe were using expensive parchment or fragile papyrus.
Oh, wow.
The arrival of paper made books more affordable, leading to a surge in literacy and a much wider spread of ideas.
Wow, so paper from China literally helped fuel the Renaissance in Europe. That's incredible.
It did.
And I bet there are other examples of these Silk Road innovations that we don't even realize we benefit from today.
Absolutely. Take gunpowder, for example.
Okay.
This invention, also originating in China, traveled westward along the Silk Road, eventually revolutionizing warfare in Europe and beyond.
Wow.
But its impact went far beyond the battlefield.
Really?
The development of gunpowder led to advancements in metallurgy, engineering, and even mining, which had ripple effects on other industries.
It's fascinating how one invention could spark so much change.
It is.
But, you know, it wasn't just a one-way street from east to west, right?
Right.
The Silk Road was all about exchange. So I'm guessing knowledge and ideas flowed in both directions.
You're exactly right. While inventions like paper and gunpowder traveled westward, knowledge of astronomy, mathematics, and medicine flowed eastward from the Islamic world, enriching Chinese scientific understanding.
Okay.
For instance, during the Islamic Golden Age, the city of Baghdad became a major center of learning.
Right.
Scholars there translated ancient Greek texts, made groundbreaking discoveries in algebra and astronomy, and even developed new surgical techniques. Much of this knowledge then traveled eastward along the Silk Road.
So it's like this incredible exchange of ideas and discoveries, with each culture contributing to a global pool of knowledge.
Exactly.
It makes you realize that innovation isn't always about inventing something entirely new. Sometimes it's about adapting and building upon the knowledge of others.
That's a really insightful observation. The Silk Road reminds us that progress often comes from collaboration and the sharing of ideas. But it wasn't just about scientific or technological advancements. The Silk Road also facilitated the exchange of philosophical ideas, artistic styles, and even musical traditions.
Oh, that's interesting. Can you give me some examples of that? I'm having trouble picturing how a philosophical idea would travel along a trade route.
Well, think about the spread of Buddhism, which we discussed earlier. Along with religious teachings, Buddhist monks also carried philosophical concepts like karma and reincarnation, which had a profound impact on the societies they reached. And along with those ideas came artistic styles. The beautiful Buddhist sculptures and cave paintings found in places like Dunhuang in China are a testament to the cultural fusion that occurred along the Silk Road. Even something as seemingly simple as the design of a teapot or the pattern on a rug could reflect the blending of different artistic traditions.
Wow, it's like the Silk Road was this incredible melting pot of not just goods, but also ideas, beliefs, and artistic expressions.
It really was.
It makes you wonder, were there any clashes or conflicts when these different cultures met? Or was it always a harmonious exchange?
That's a great question, and one we'll explore further in the next part of our deep dive. While the Silk Road fostered incredible collaboration and exchange, it also had a darker side. Stay tuned as we uncover the complexities and challenges of this fascinating historical network.
Welcome back to our deep dive into the Silk Road. We've journeyed through bustling cities, explored the spread of religions, and even uncovered the impact of the Silk Road on knowledge and technology. But as we've hinted, this incredible network wasn't without its challenges, right?
Right. Yeah, the Silk Road, for all its wonders, also had a darker side. And, it's important to remember that even with something as seemingly positive as trade and cultural exchange, there can be complexities and, unintended consequences.
Okay, let's unpack this a bit. So, what were some of the downsides or challenges associated with the Silk Road? I mean, we talked about conflict briefly, but were there other issues lurking beneath the surface of this vibrant trade network?
Yeah, one significant issue was exploitation.
Okay.
While the Silk Road created economic opportunities for many, those benefits weren't always distributed evenly.
Yeah.
For instance, the demand for luxury goods like silk and porcelain in the West sometimes fueled exploitative labor practices in the East. Imagine the pressure on silk weavers or porcelain makers to meet those demands. It's likely that many faced harsh working conditions and unfair wages.
That makes a lot of sense. And it reminds us that we can't just look at the beautiful objects or the impressive trade routes. We have to think about the people who made those things, the ones who might have been exploited or marginalized in the process.
Exactly. And we also have to consider the power dynamics at play.
Okay.
The Silk Road connected empires and kingdoms of varying sizes and strengths, and this sometimes led to one side exerting its influence over another, either through economic pressure or even military force.
So it wasn't always a fair and equal exchange. Some societies might have benefited greatly from the Silk Road, while others were left behind or even taken advantage of.
That's a crucial point. The Silk Road wasn't a utopia of perfect balance and harmony. It reflected the realities of the world at that time, with all its complexities, inequalities, and power struggles.
And then, of course, there's the issue of conflict, right? I mean, we talked about how the Silk Road helped spread religions, but those interactions didn't always lead to peaceful coexistence. Sometimes different religious groups clashed, and those conflicts could be quite violent.
You're absolutely right. Religious tensions were a recurring issue along the Silk Road, and then there were the conflicts over control of the trade routes themselves.
Oh, right.
Remember, these routes were vital arteries for commerce, and control over them meant power and wealth.
So it wasn't just bandits and pirates that travelers had to worry about. Entire armies might clash over access to these lucrative trade networks.
Precisely, and those conflicts could have devastating consequences, disrupting trade, causing widespread suffering, and even redrawing political boundaries.
It's like the Silk Road was a microcosm of the world itself with all its beauty, its potential for connection and progress, but also its capacity for conflict exploitation and inequality. It's a reminder that even with something as seemingly positive as cultural exchange, there are always complexities to consider.
That's a very insightful observation. The Silk Road story is a reminder that we can't just romanticize the past. We have to look at it with a critical eye, acknowledging both the positive and the negative aspects.
It makes you wonder then, what lessons can we learn from this? I mean, we live in a world that's even more interconnected than the Silk Road era, with global trade and technology connecting us in ways those ancient travelers could never have imagined. Can the Silk Road offer any guidance for navigating our modern world?
Absolutely. One crucial lesson is the importance of understanding the full context of our interconnectedness. Just as the Silk Road brought both prosperity and exploitation, modern globalization offers both opportunities and challenges. It's our responsibility to be aware of both sides of that equation.
So it's not enough to simply celebrate the benefits of global trade and communication. We also have to be mindful of the potential downsides: exploitation, inequality, and even conflict.
Exactly. And just as the Silk Road demonstrated the importance of cultural exchange and understanding, we need to prioritize those values in our modern world. Open dialogue, respect for diverse perspectives, and willingness to learn from each other are essential for navigating the complexities of globalization.
It sounds like the Silk Road, despite its darker side, offers some valuable insights for our present and future. It's a reminder that interconnectedness is a powerful force, but one that needs to be managed with awareness, responsibility, and a commitment to fairness and understanding.
Couldn't have said it better myself. By studying the past, we gain valuable perspectives on the present. The Silk Road, with its triumphs and tragedies, its innovations and conflicts, serves as a fascinating case study for understanding the complexities of our interconnected world.
Well, there you have it, folks. We've journeyed across continents, traversed centuries, and explored the many facets of the Silk Road, the good, the bad, and the incredibly complex.
We've seen how this network of routes facilitated trade, spurred innovation, and sparked cultural exchanges that continue to influence us today. But we've also recognized the importance of acknowledging the Silk Road's darker side, the conflicts, the exploitation, and the need to approach globalization with a critical eye.
As we conclude this deep dive, we encourage you to continue exploring, delve into the resources we've shared, visit museums, read historical accounts, and let the Silk Road spark your own curiosity about the interconnectedness of our world.
And as you journey through our modern world, remember the lessons of the Silk Road, embrace the diversity of cultures, seek understanding, and strive to build bridges of collaboration rather than walls of division. After all, our shared human stories intricately woven together, much like the threads of silk that once connected East and West.